Hi everybody, I recently finished the book In the Service of the Shogun, the real story of William Adams. It was written by Frederick Crines, a professor of Japanese history at the International Research Center for Japanese Studies in Kyoto. He was involved in the Shogun television series, which released this year as well. Taking place in the 15 and 1600s, the book is a biography of William Adams, an English shipbuilder and eventual captain who set out with the Dutch for international trade, and plenty of naval warfare and battles with hostile islanders along the way. Eventually, his ship landed in Japan with him and his crew barely alive. Instead of being deported or executed, he wound up becoming an important advisor and international trade facilitator to the Shogun, Tokugawa Ieyasu. The first 80 pages barely mention Japan, but are by far the most interesting, focusing briefly on the war between the Spanish Catholics and Protestant English, and full of adventures across the ocean. So many of the stories were terrifying to read. Back then, before electronic communication, if a ship lost sight of its fleet in the middle of the ocean, the only thing to do was continue to the destination alone. I really enjoyed reading how Adams matured during his journey, and how unbelievably lucky he wound up being to become favored by Ieyasu, in a country where the already established Portuguese immediately had it out for him. The latter half of the book I didn't like quite as much. Aside from a disastrous excursion to the Ryukyu Islands, present-day Okinawa, much of his life in Japan was little more than navigating 17th century office politics between other European traders, while hoping to one day be allowed out of the country. I enjoyed reading the book, but can't strongly recommend it. Those already invested in Japanese history will enjoy the insight into the post-Civil War period, foreign and trade relations, and glimpses into the lives of Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu, two very notable figures. However, many will find the latter two-thirds rather underwhelming. Alright, I hope you enjoyed my little summary and review. If you'd like to stick around, here are some notes of the portions which I found the most interesting. History of Portuguese Jesuits in Japan. Since 1549, Jesuit priests were active in Japan promoting Catholicism. Due to threatening the status quo of the populace, they were frequently cracked down by the government, but often on a temporary basis because of their association with Portuguese merchants. Funnily enough, I often played this game on the PC about 20 years ago called Shogun Total War by Electronic Arts, and the Jesuit priests often come into play as you could deploy them to try to influence other rival factions during the Civil War period. Jesuit persecution of the Dutch heretics. Adams' ship landed in the Bungo region of Kyushu, which contained a large Christian population. Upon the Jesuits discovering the crew were Dutch heretics, which threatened Portuguese trade, they attempted to convince authorities that the Dutch were pirates, going as far as to seek their execution. The San Felipe incident of 1596. Toyotomi Hideyoshi seized the cargo of a Spanish ship that grounded in Japan while sailing from Manila to Mexico. Attempting to intimidate the Japanese, the ship's captain boasted of Spanish colonies and their use of Christian missionaries to influence populations of countries they were priming to exploit. The incident further deepened Japanese suspicion of Spain and Portugal. Souring Japanese-Portuguese relations. In the early 1600s, the Portuguese interim governor of Macau intervened in a dispute between a Japanese Red Seal ship and the Portuguese in the waters of Macau, resulting in Japanese deaths a year later. Interim Governor Andra Pessoa arrived in Nagasaki but would not leave his karak, sending a deputy in his place. Tokugawa Ieyasu, angered Pessoa would not meet Nagasaki Governor Hasegawa Fujihiro, gave the original Red Seal ship permission to sink the Portuguese karak. And finally, we have the Red Seal Pass mentioned in the last card. The Red Seal Pass, devised by Toyotomi Hideyoshi and continued by Tokugawa Ieyasu, guaranteed its owner protection by the shogunate. Funny enough, in the anime Samurai Champloo, that dealt with visiting traders from Holland, and the Red Seal Pass came into play at the end of the episode. Alright, and looks like you made it to the end of the video. If you were interested enough in Japanese history to read all those notes along with me, you'd probably dig this book. Check it out at your bookstore or better yet, local library. Thanks for watching and see you again next time.